Who has more support nationally, Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders? Well, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average of all polls, we can figure this out. Bernie Sanders currently has an average of 30.6% support among Democrats. Donald Trump has an average of about 34% support among Republicans. But there are more Democrats than Republicans, 30 to 28%. And if you include those who lean Democratic and those who lean Republican, that gets us to about 44% Democrats, 42% Republicans, which tells us that support for Bernie and Trump nationally is pretty close to even. It's pretty close to 50-50 nationally. Now, if we add to this that way more voters nationally are downright scared of Donald Trump being president compared to Bernie Sanders, it is very safe to say that Bernie Sanders has more support nationally than does Donald Trump. But how does media coverage compare, Lewis? Well, Media Matters reported that in 2015, Trump received 234 minutes of coverage from MSNBC, or from NBC, CBS, and ABC evening news broadcasts, looking at cable network news broadcasts. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, 10 minutes. 10 minutes of coverage from the big three networks for Bernie Sanders. 23 times more coverage did Donald Trump receive than Bernie Sanders. ABC gave Sanders the least amount of time, only 20 seconds of stories broadcast about the Sanders campaign on World News Tonight. And there's another factor. Trump was one of 16 or 17 candidates for a while, and he's still one of 10, whereas Bernie Sanders is one of 3 candidates. And when you consider that, the disproportionately, exponentially more corporate media coverage that Trump gets versus Bernie is truly stunning. And there's a few hypotheses about this, Lewis. I mean, if I just told you Trump gets 23 times more coverage than Bernie, they have about the same amount of support nationally, why would you think the disparity exists in coverage?
Well, first of all, we can say with certitude that Donald Trump says 100 million times as many crazy things as Bernie Sanders.
Right.
And so he's making these statements and people want to hear it. It's good for business. It's good for ratings. It's good for the media. But at the same time, you have to wonder if corporate media is making a conscious decision just to give Donald Trump more time because he's, well, just that, I guess, the ratings machine.
I thought initially the sort of easy answer is ratings. Trump's better for ratings. And that does seem to be true. I mean, there's no doubt that Trump is better for ratings than Bernie Sanders. Then I started thinking, well, Donald Trump's ideas aren't really a threat to corporate media conglomerates in the way that Bernie Sanders' ideas could be. And then I started thinking, well, also corporate media is more right-wing and maybe they actually just want Trump to win. I think mostly, though, it is the ratings issue. And I am often interested in going deeper than that. But I think a big factor here is that people are just fascinated by Trump. People agree way more with Bernie's ideas. When you actually ask people, hey, do you think the government has some responsibility to provide a basic level of health care to everybody, regardless of ability to pay? That's an issue where the majority of this country agrees with Bernie Sanders. But that's not very exciting. The ratings are with Trump. And I think that is the biggest piece of the Trump-Bernie ratings gap.
I think so. And I don't think corporate media is focusing long-term here because
No.
if they were, they would be giving Trump less coverage and they would actively be trying to make sure that he won because then they would have 4 years of this kind of thing, assuming there's no impeachment. And that would be fantastic for business.
I was recently talking to a bunch of progressive hosts, and we were all just, very casually talking. And the conversation came up of, listen, this is maybe the scariest year with regard to Republican presidential candidates. I mean, it is so important that a Republican does not win in 2016. And at the same time, this is the year where we all stand the most to gain from one of these right-wing nuts winning, because progressive media will grow so much if someone like Trump or Cruz or Rubio gets elected. And of course, we were just sort of speaking extemporaneously. None of us actually wants a Republican to win, but we were all recognizing that if we get another 4 years of a Democrat, particularly given that we're down to just 2 pretty reasonable candidates by and large, aside from disagreements that we may have with either of them, that's not going to be as much of a catalyst for interest in shows like ours. I mean, there's no doubt that if Trump or Rubio or Cruz wins, shows like ours benefit greatly. And still, everybody said it is so important for our country that these nuts not win.
Yeah, I mean, what's more important overall? No question. But the good news is, if there's some good news, that campaigns seem
Yeah.
to start earlier and earlier every election cycle. So I don't know in how many years, Dave. The day after the election, the next round of campaigning will start, and then we'll just have wall-to-wall madness all the time.
All the time. It's an exciting time to look forward to, no question about it.